Three, two, one. We are on. Hello, Mane H.
Hi, Don.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. It's been a long time since you've been on Exhibit A.
Yeah.
When was the last time you were on it?
When I first passed the bar exam.
Yeah, it's been like about a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, years gone by, and I'm happy to tell everybody in the world that we've got a very fine attorney with us. You've gotten an incredible amount of experience within 1 year. You've done a trial. You have taken on some really interesting cases. I don't want to get too detailed in those because of privacy, but man, I've just been amazed at all the things that you've done. I don't even think that you realize how much you've done within a year.
Thank you, Don. I'm happy to be here.
Do you feel like the experience was what you thought it would be, when you first signed on with the firm?
Yes, and more. It was a lot. I did a lot more than I thought I would do.
Cool. Well, I can tell you that for me, I love watching really smart, talented young attorneys develop and stuff, and you certainly have, and I'm glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
We're going to do something different today. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about an issue that people they're going to be interested in this at the very least. Okay, because it goes to the human nature, and that is going to be when a marriage can be annulled based upon fraud. Okay, now in my many years of practicing as a family law attorney, I do occasionally have people come into the office and they're like, you know what, that person married me just so that they could get their citizenship. They just wanted to come to America. Have you seen any of those cases yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay, but you are familiar with the appellate court decisions. I know that.
Yes.
Yeah, and usually, when people have come to me and they've said that, I'm like, how are we going to prove that? And what is the law? I don't think this is going to last. I don't think you're going to win, if we go to courts. But I was surprised to see in my research that there are a lot of appellate court decisions where people have been successful in getting annulments based upon fraud. So what I wanted to do is for our viewers is to talk about what the law says with regard to annulments and fraud based on this. And I'm going to open a little book that helps us all with this. And basically, if there's going to be an intent to commit fraud on the marriage just to get into the United States, that could be a cause, right?
Correct.
Yeah. What the law says is that false representations or concealment constituting the fraud must relate to a matter of substance and directly affect the purpose of the party deceived in entering the marriage. Fraud must go to the very essence of the marital relation to be sufficient for an annulment. And an allegation, in the words of one appellate court, quote, the husband turned out to be, in the eyes of his wife, a lazy, unshaven disappointment with drinking problems, but that was insufficient to justify a judgment of nullity. So just because you married a bum doesn't mean that you get to get your marriage annulled, right?
Right.
I think a lot of people would ask for annulments if, they can make the claim that this wasn't the guy that I thought I was married.
I think all of our clients.
That's true, or at least most of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a case, the recent appellate court decision. It's called, or it's entitled Goodwin, Mitchell, and Mitchell. So it's marriage of Goodwin, Mitchell, and Mitchell. And it was published in 2019. And I'm going to go over the facts a little bit. I know that you know them already, but for our viewers, I'm going to go over them. So this is a case where in January of 2015, the wife met her husband, and they begin dating over the internet. So this is one of these things where they're not meeting with each other face to face. They're on the internet and they begin dating. So, as you've heard me say before, is I don't know how people date over the internet, but I'm not going to throw my stone too far because my wife and I met over the internet and things worked out and stuff. But dating, I don't think we've dated. I don't know how that works. So the facts say that the husband tells the wife that he wants her to come to the United States and live with her so they could have a restaurant business, and he wants to join the Army. Now, this is apparently within the first month of them dating on the internet. Again, they haven't met, but he wants to live with her, right? And I think this fact is important because if you look at it, it's like you could tell he really wants to come to the United States, right? He's, by the way, I think it's Jamaica, right? And so she's in the United States, he's in Jamaica. They're dating over the internet, and within a month's time, he's talking about starting a restaurant over here and joining the U.S. Army. He starts talking about marriage with her between February 15th I'm sorry, February 2015 and March 2015. So within 1 month, he's talking marriage. Things are moving pretty quickly, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, a little too quickly. I mean, you wouldn't want your friend getting married within 1 month of dating over the internet, I hope.
No, I would advise against that.
Okay.
As her attorney.
Okay, well.
Or his.
Yeah, okay. So in June of 2015, she travels to Jamaica to meet him for the very first time. So this is the first time that they're seeing each other in person. And guess what?
They get married.
They get married. You're right. Now, this must have been romantic. When I got to this passage of the appellate court decision, I could hear the music playing. I could feel the sand on the bottom of my feet, you know. What about you?
Not so much.
Okay, all right. Okay. So the wife returns to the United States after getting married, and she starts filling out her paperwork to get hubby into the United States. She applies for the 2-year visa for him. The application is approved in September of 2016, and 2 months later, in November, he joins her. Isn't that nice? I mean, she went over there, found the man of her dreams, man. Romantic. I could imagine that she's still thinking, you know, God, when he gets over here, it's going to be just like when we were in Jamaica. Well, unfortunately, according to her, he starts soliciting call girls, prostitutes, and other women off of sites. He's on the internet within 1 week of his arrival. So apparently there was a problem with him. And she's hurt, obviously, right? So what happens is in February of 2017, he's jailed for several days after an incident of domestic violence, and the trial court issues a restraining order against him. So, indeed, things are moving very quickly. And we're talking about just within 3 months, man. He finds himself in jail because he's committed domestic violence on her. So the facts continue. While he's in jail, wife is snooping around the house. She's got that curious, thing going on. And she discovers text messages that he sent to his mom, which indicated that he was staying with his wife only until he got his papers. And he was urging his brother to come to the United States, too. So now we're starting to look like maybe we got some facts here that show that, he never really intended on staying there. He came over here to defraud her. He just wanted to be in the United States, and he's using her as a vehicle. She also finds texts between the husband and another woman in which he repeatedly said he loved her, explained that he could not leave her until he got his papers or the army came through. And he said that when he gets out of jail, he's just going to hang out, until he can get his papers. Well, he gets out of jail, and what do you think that the wife in this case does?
They probably get back together.
Right. So, she knows that this guy's doing all these things, but she hasn't let go of that romantic thought, of him and her strolling along the beach, in Jamaica with sand under their feet, right? So he gets out, they get back home, and they fully resume their relationship. Although she claims that they're no longer holding themselves out as a couple, but they're having sexual relations and they're living like a couple. She would later say that she only did this because she felt responsible for him until he was given his permanent resident status. However, in March of 2017, now this must have been just a month or two after he gets out of jail, he finds out that the husband had sex with another woman in their home. Okay, now things are like as bad as they could get at this point, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, what does she do? So in June of 2017, she files for annulment on the basis of fraud or alternative for a divorce. The husband and the wife continue to live together and have sexual relations until November, at which time she finally says, move out of the home. Okay, so those are the facts of this appellate court decision. And, looking at this thing at first blush, you could see how she would feel that she'd been cheated, right? Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
I agree, yeah.
Yeah, and I think she would have good reason to believe that a court would think that, he came into the United States not to really be married to me, but to live in the United States, mm-hmm. right? Okay. So what does the trial court do? They hear all this evidence. The trial court finds that the husband indeed had engaged in 2 relationships with other women before he had been in the United States for a year. Wow. The court reasons that wife and husband owed each other a duty of fidelity to live together, not just cohabit, in full confidence of fidelity, and concluded that that wasn't the case here. And it grants the wife's motion for nullity. She's a free lady. She's never been married, right? Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? The husband appeals, claiming that the wife failed to prove the elements under Family Code Section 2210D. Goes up on appeal, and this is very interesting here. In essence, what the Court of Appeal says is what?
That the intent to defraud someone must be present at the time the relationship is formed, which wasn't present here.
Yeah, I mean, they're finding that there was no proof of that, right? I mean, the evidence apparently wasn't strong enough for the Court of Appeal, and maybe the trial court hadn't made findings of that when it ruled that, because this case was remanded. The court reminded all of us that fraud must be shown by clear and convincing evidence, and as you indicated, that there must be a showing that it's kind of like specific intent in a criminal case, that he had that intent before he ever married her. I think the facts are pretty good in this case for that. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the other appellate court decisions that had similar facts, and the decision went the other way. But importantly, what the court said something that the wife did also defeats her claim for nullity. What was that?
Getting back with him time and time again, and living with him and cohabitating with him.
Yeah. Basically, what the Court of Appeal and the law says is that if you're waiving it, and about these facts, and you continue to live with somebody as a married person, you've basically given up your right to claim that there was fraud and get an annulment. Very interesting case. I thought that people should know that if they want to ever have a claim for this, the last thing that you want to do is allow the person to continue living with you, and you need to separate right away, I would think, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So let's look at some of the cases that did go the other way. Have you? I don't know if you had a chance to look at these, but I quoted some of them in a recent review that I had. But I've noticed that most of the cases are pretty old. I don't see any recent cases, but there are cases where, for example, the husband married wife while intending to continue his existing sexual relationship with the wife's sister. That was
the Ramirez case.
Yeah, Schwab versus Schwab. What happened in that case?
In that case, the wife married a husband intending to continue her sexual relationship with another man.
Okay, and then there's the marriage of Rabi. A husband induced wife to marry him solely to acquire a green card and never intended to remain faithful or stay married. One of the things that I noticed by looking at these decisions is the Court of Appeal really does look at whether or not the marriage was consummated. I've always heard that before. He said, our marriage was never consummated. So we get an annulment. That seems to be a fact for a lot of these cases. There was one, and I don't recall the name of it, but the woman came over here to get a green card. And within the first day, she basically told the husband, I'm not having sex with you. In fact, they stopped their relationship, or they started living separate and apart within 1 week. And those facts were strong for the court, that she never really intended on being with this man and stuff. So
yeah, I think that was Marriage of Lou.
Okay.
Yeah, it's from 1987, so pretty old.
Maybe the most recent one, though, of the cases that we found, I think, right? Because a lot of these cases are coming from like the 1940s and stuff. So cool. So what did you learn from this lesson?
To not get back with someone if you feel like they're defrauding you, first and foremost.
Cool. Yeah, in this day and age, more than ever, we're seeing people coming over from all parts of the world, and I'm reminded about some of the cases that I've had that didn't involve the allegation of fraud, but a lot of these cases where people go over and find husbands or wives in Russia, or the Philippines or South Korea or wherever it is and stuff. They actually come back and they live together, and in order for them to come over, people have to sign what's called affidavits of support. And sometimes people bring their children with them when they come over. So there's a lot of risks that are involved in this type of stuff. But I just thought this one would be an interesting and entertaining one for our audience. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Don.
This was a short one, but I think it was a fun one as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And thank you for joining us on Exhibit A.